Hey, Cassandra, and welcome to Voice Notes from the Organized Homeschool. I'm so excited to chat with you and have you on the podcast and send some voice notes back and forth and then let other people listen to them. This is going to be so much fun. So let's just jump right in. Can you introduce yourself? Share with me like a little bit more about who you are, your background, and then, of course, about your homeschool. So, you can share whatever you feel comfortable sharing, maybe your children's ages, maybe just a little bit about like what your homeschool looks like, whatever you feel comfortable sharing. Let's jump in with a quick introduction and then we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Casondra. I'm a mom of four. I have a 13, 11, 9, and 7-year-old. I have been teaching for, I don't know, since 2006 when I went to China to teach for the very first time. And I've traveled the world teaching English as a second language. And then I came back to the US in Kentucky and I continued teaching here. And then after children, I just felt like it wasn't really the the best place for one of my kids. Public school wasn't the best place for her. She tried it for a couple of years and really struggled socially. I soon found out that she has autism. And so homeschooling for us, and the first year of homeschooling for her was last year. And it was honestly just unlearning, a lot of unlearning and a lot of child led, allowing her and her sister to tell me their interests and to just follow them and what they enjoy and going down the rabbit trail of that. And it was definitely a fun journey. And it's still a fun journey.
Okay, so you have four kids, 2 years apart each. That's amazing. You are a superwoman, like so good. I have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and I'm like, I don't know how people have their children closer together than this because I don't think I'd be able to do it. But I'm sure now, with them being older, it doesn't feel so, you know, tight together, and like it's probably a great thing. But I just feel like when they're so close, it can be hard, but also there's hard to all of it. So anyways, wanted to say that, but also talk to me about teaching overseas. How did you get into that? Like, did you join a program that placed people overseas? I'm a former Teach for America teacher, so I know there's like Teach for All that goes to different countries. Was it something like that? Or I think there's also like Teach Away. So I'm curious to hear about that experience. And also, congratulations on finishing your first year of homeschooling. Did you homeschool just two of your four children or just one this year? Yeah.
So, okay, Teach for America. My sister did Teach for America in Ohio, and she was there for 10 years, even after getting her master's, and just recently moved to Kentucky. So that's an aside that I wanted to send you. Okay, so you mentioned about the kids being a couple years apart. Funny story. So I have one biological child, and she is 9. And my other kids came to me by way of foster care, and they're a sibling set of 3, 2 boys and a girl. And I was actually tutoring their tutor, the oldest 2, for about 6 months. And the little girl and my daughter, who are, a year and a half, 2 years apart, they got to be friends and we started to do overnights. And before you knew it, I ended up having all 3 kids come live with me. And I don't even know how I got there except for the grace of God. So they're now all adopted. And yeah, so that's how I came to have my kids that just so happened to all be 2 years apart. It is just the funniest thing, but they have their moments where they are the bestest of friends, and they have their moments where they're like, I wish you didn't exist. So, you know how kids can be. They are brutal sometimes, but they are also so much fun, and we have a blast traveling together. So, you asked me about my travels overseas, and I was in college at Campbellsville University and had an opportunity to study abroad. and it was with the English Language Institute of China. And so we went over there and we taught English classes to a school, I believe it's Songzhou in the Hebei province of China. And we taught middle schoolers. And it was so fun. We were there for, I believe, 6 to 9 weeks. And it was in 2006, but the Olympics were going to be coming to China, I believe, in 2008. And so we taught about the Olympics and taught them all the vocabulary and everything that related to the Olympics. So that was my first professional teaching experience. But I grew up in a church, my dad's pastor. And so I've been teaching a lot of my life, whether it be stepping in to take over a Sunday school class because a teacher fell sick, or organizing a vacation Bible school for children, or, whatever it may be. I have kind of always had that role as a teacher placed upon me and just, fell into it. I do believe that it's a calling and a gift and something that I'm very passionate about, but didn't go to school for, ironically. But after China, I ended up graduating from college and teaching at a boarding school in Eastern Kentucky. And I taught English as a second language. And I had students from all over the world in Eastern Kentucky. It is so unbelievable. Many of them were from Ethiopia, which led me going to Ethiopia to teach. And so I have been able to teach in Africa, Asia, Europe, Australia, and Central America. It's all just been through invitation by friends or students or opportunities for mission work that the missions was me teaching. And it's just been a really cool opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. And there's so many former teachers who are homeschooling. I just knew a TFA connection would pop up at some point. So let's switch gears back to homeschooling. You mentioned your daughters homeschooled. So did you just homeschool your 2 daughters and then your sons went to school at first? How did that look? How old were they when you started? And what does a typical day look like for you all in your homeschool?
I started homeschooling one of my daughters before she went to kindergarten. So I kind of always wanted to homeschool, but being a single mom, I wasn't so sure I could do that. So we were doing all the homeschooling things since she was very small. And then she ended up going to a STEM school for kindergarten, and went to school for first grade. Then I pulled her out after first grade when just school wasn't working well for her, and started homeschooling last year. So she was 8, I believe, when I began homeschooling her. And then once the adoption went through for my other kids, I was allowed to homeschool them. My boys asked to stay in public school, so I, let my kids decide what's best for them. And then my other daughter asked if she could join homeschool, and so she has been thriving in that. A typical day for us, this past year has been a lot of unschooling, so a typical day has looked like going to different museums or going to the park or to the library and just allowing them to see the environment and decide what they'd like to learn, and just kind of like making things less rigid for them than what it had been. And really and truly a lot of therapy as well, because we had a lot of mental health issues because of our experience in public school. And so we were doing daytime therapies, whether it's OT, speech, or behavioral therapy. And so that is a lot of our day as well. And it's taking books with us to therapy, or puzzles with us, or even doing some math flashcards, or just real world math. Okay, what do we want to have for the next 2 days for dinners? And then giving my kids a phone and letting them pick out the ingredients that are needed on our Walmart app and doing a click list and letting them lead that. And then taking the food, and I let them organize it on the shelves in the pantry and in their fridge and freezer how they see fit. And I let them help. Usually they kind of cook their meals themselves, honestly. So, we're using math and we're using critical thinking and problem solving through all of those just natural, everyday life things that we're doing. So that's kind of a typical day for us. And then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays when we go to co-op, a co-op that I started. And so, from 9:30 to 12:30, we're at the co-op and we are doing different enrichment classes. And usually when we come back from that, they are not wanting to do anything else and I don't make them. And so, yeah.
Okay, sounds like such beautiful days that you have with real world learning and just allowing them to learn from the things that you all are doing day to day and in their life. So I love that. I definitely have questions about the co-op and about starting your co-op. But before we transition there, what maybe, if any, were the challenges, internal struggles with unlearning? I think especially you, I know that your teaching was overseas and in different places, but you have a teaching background. So having that experience and then saying, you know what, we're going to go the unlearning route. Any mindsets you had to work on, any things you had to work through? How did you do that? What were those? And then what's your plan for this year? Are you going to stick with the unlearning and continuing in that way?
When I first started homeschooling, I was still carrying the classroom with me, I swear. The structure, the control, the pacing guides, and perfectly planned units. I thought I was doing the right thing, giving my kids what I'd been given, or what I'd had given so many students before. But my kids, girl, they weren't having it. They pushed back hard, rolled their eyes, walked away mid-lesson, were saying things like, "This is boring. Why does this feel like school?" And honestly, they weren't wrong. It was boring. I was stuck in this mindset that learning had to look a certain way: quiet, seated, timed, measurable. But my kids, especially being neurodivergent, were telling me with their whole bodies that they needed something different, something, I don't know, freer, something real. I had to go through my own deschooling. I had to grieve the teacher I thought I had to be and become the parent and educator that they actually needed. So that meant letting go of control. And I'm very controlling. I had to embrace messy days. I had to follow rabbit trails. And then I had to trust that their play could actually be purposeful. Their joy, that's the evidence of learning. That rest, it's actually not lazy. That connection, it should come before content. So there was this moment I'll never forget. My daughter looked at me and she says, Mommy, I don't want to do school like this. I want to love learning. And it broke me, but it also woke me up. So now we still have plans, but they bend. We chase curiosity. We laugh more. We cry when we need to. We take breaks. We bake during math and build fun robots during reading because that's what they like. And I've learned that success isn't always measured in finished worksheets. It's in eye contact. It's in my girls choosing to try again. It's in the healing. Homeschooling, it didn't just free my kids, it freed me from the pressure, from the performance, because I'm a performer, from the lie that everything has to be proven to be real. I'm not just teaching my kids anymore, I'm becoming alongside them. And I'm telling you, that has been the most holy kind of education. I'm so grateful to their brutal honesty.
Okay, this is so good. And I mean, I love that you've highlighted the fact that homeschooling is not just teaching for our children because we are learning right alongside them, whether it be the actual academics, because sometimes, we've forgotten some of the things that you have to teach in fifth grade or fourth grade or even kindergarten sometimes, right? It's like, what? But not just the academics piece. It's like they're teaching us how to be better parents and how to let go of control, like you said, and how to follow our own curiosity or listen to our own bodies and the rhythm of the day. Like, there's so much that I have been growing in. And, one of the things you said is like the eye contact is I can't remember if you said like the reward or the learning, but like, being present in a world where our phones are just connected to us and there's so much distraction is like something I have been working on a lot. And I don't think I would have been so focused on it if I was not homeschooling because, I wouldn't be with my kids so much. And so it's just so cool that not only are they learning, we're getting to learn too. So I would love to talk about like organization systems, things like that in terms of how you're planning, like how do you set up to now that, have grieved the control and the typical structure in which our world says is education, how do you plan what systems, routines, types of things have you set up for yourself when it comes to homeschooling and teaching your children in this more like unschooling nature? I would love to hear that. And I have not forgotten about the co-op, but let's just first start with like your own personal systems for planning, organization, all of that. And then I definitely want to hear about starting a co-op because I know there are people who are like, I want to start my own thing. And I can't wait to talk about that.
So, as a homeschool mom that is leaning more into unschooling, especially with my neurodivergent kids and me being neurodivergent myself, I've really learned to let go of this rigid full day lesson plans. This doesn't work for us. So instead, I've learned to be more flexible, to be more family centered, have a more family centered system, and have it grounded in rhythm, in just my kids' curiosity and in connection. And so each day of our week, or each week, I would say, is more of a like general theme or focus, whether it's science or world history, cooking, art, these rhythms, they're giving us structure without restriction. So I'm able to offer my kids the freedom to anticipate and participate without pressure. And so I use the happy planner. I'm very, I really just, I love the happy planners and the way that they're, the rings on the side. I'm just a nerd in that. But anyway, I write down my weekly intentions and, kind of have a Google Doc. And that's just because I am more of an organized person and that's what works for me. And then I'm able to just kind of jot down like what topics really spark my children's interest and what field trip ideas, do I have that can connect to what we're exploring or, some lesson sparks like, whether it be YouTube clips or book list or hands-on crafts, different writing prompts, I get all of those things. And instead of me scripting every single moment, I'm really just creating a buffet of possibilities. And then we can then pick what feels right that day. And it just goes a lot smoother for my family. And so I often build learning around what lights them up. And when one of my girls shows an interest in a topic, then I weave the lessons and the trips and the books and the creative outlets that center around her voice and gifts. And so one of my daughters recently asked for a planner of her own. And so we actually designed one together on Canva and, she was able to print it out and put it in her little folder. And so she can choose what she wants to do for the week with those learning activities that have been listed for that week. And they're not in a particular order. She can pick it out and do whichever one she wants to do when she wants to do it, but it's still along with our theme. And with that said, I wrote this 33-week world history curriculum. And I wrote it for my girls in mind, but also for my co-op. And the curriculum's called Canvas of Cultures. And so, I told you I designed it with them in mind, and every week is focusing on a marginalized people group from a different part of the world. I love history. I crave history, and the history that we got in schools wasn't so colorful. It was bland. And, you know, I love history, and I love that my girls enjoy it as well. And so this curriculum, it is family oriented. And so it's made for the whole family in mind, that you could just sit down as a family and do this together. It includes, a narrative history story, a family devotions if you're a Christian family and would prefer that. That's included. All the lessons are not Christian lessons. It's just there is a family devotion added to it with a family activity. There's also STEM, real world math, and there's recipes from the cultures. There's creative writing and art project and skits and geography and cultural exploration. And each week has like a scavenger hunt of things that you're looking for from that culture. I just want to see families love history. And I really feel like this curriculum is so rich and it's so good. And it doesn't feel like school. I've been testing it out with my kids over summer. It does not feel like school. It just feels like life shared. And so, with that said, and I have that available in my Gumroad that people could purchase if they're interested. But with that said, and I know a lot of people talk about, grading and that sort of thing. And with my girls, I don't grade, I document. So, Kentucky doesn't just have those requirements for homeschoolers, but we don't do tests. We do oral narrations and family discussions, and I'll let them take pictures, and we do photo journals. And of course they write and those kind of things, and they come up with beautiful stories and skits and all the things, and we cook together and build together and reflect together. And the learning that we do, it's deep, even when it looks like play. And so I love it so much.
Okay, so definitely please share the link to that curriculum, because I already have folks in mind who I want to pass it along to and share with, and I'd love to take a look too. So please share that curriculum link so we can pass that along and share it for anyone who's listening too. But your system structure planning sounds all awesome. I love how you're like, I like structure, I love planning, but I also, want it to be topic based and sparking the interest of your children. And I'm also loving how your daughter's like, I want a planner too, because that was totally me as a kid. Like, I was like, I need a binder and I need to keep everything organized and together. And I don't use a happy planner because I created a planner, but I have previously purchased happy planners when I was a teacher and a principal, and then I started creating my own planners then, and continued to use like the happy planner front and back and the discs and the hole punch and everything. So that's what I use too, and I love that system because you can add and take things out and put things in so easily and really just like customize it. So I feel you. I am with you on that, like geeking out over a hole punch system. So funny. Okay, so you mentioned your co-op a couple times. Tell us about this. You started a co-op. Why did you start a co-op? Tell us all the things about the co-op that you started, and then how you started it too. Like, if I'm someone who really wants the community and the co-op, how did you do that? And yeah, let's hear all the things about from the beginning to now. What is the co-op? How? Why? Everything.
Rad Arts didn't really start with a team or a full roster or even a big launch. It started with a simple question. What if we could build the kind of learning space my kid actually needs? And that was it. So last fall, it was my daughter and three of her friends. And I had the vision, I got the curriculum, and I had a passion that did not have a location. So I reached out to one of my friends, Beth, at Urban Village, and when I tell you she didn't hesitate to offer us space, and her act of generosity it really birthed something bigger than I could have ever imagined. So, Rad Arts Academy, it's a creative, culturally rooted homeschool co-op. And it's built for families who want something different. So I mix academics with the arts, world history with real world projects, and structure with flexibility. And many of our students are neurodivergent, adopted, or they've experienced trauma. So whenever we do our lessons, it's designed with those needs in mind. And it's not just a program that fills the time, it's a place where kids are seen, where culture is celebrated, where learning feels alive. And we serve K through 12 now. I'm telling you, I have students from a variety of backgrounds. And as I said, it's a strong emphasis on neurodivergent learners, adopted and foster youth, Black and Brown children. We are 50% of color, and there are 34 students. Families who are looking for the whole child, hands-on education. So believe it or not, many of our families came from public school. There were a few that were homeschooled before, but most of them came from public school. And we just kind of all have this common desire for connection, creativity, and a safe place for our kids to grow. So we meet Tuesday through Thursday, 9:30 to 12:45, and each day is grounded in rhythm and not rigidity. Our students move through small multi-age classes and they learn through stories, experiments, projects, and performance. We have history, STEM, art, musical theater, language arts, geography. I think I mentioned music and science and games. And we are teaching world history through the lens of marginalized people groups around the world. And every unit, and this is coming from my canvas of cultures, it's coming, each of our units is has family devotions, cooking, storytelling, art, movement. And then, we're intentional about being intergenerational as well. We do some volunteer at a local facility called Lord's Legacy. It's for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we go there once a month and we help them and spend time with them and play games and do projects. And our kids really love it. And, we operate as an LLC, but we're pursuing our nonprofit status. And I have a board of 4 members who are really helping my mission. And the families, they pay a modest fee, and that supports our part-time teachers and our materials. And so if someone's out there who's like, hey, how can I start my own co-op? You don't really need a full roster. You don't need a permanent building, but you do need a clear vision. And it needs to be rooted in what kids and families truly need. And when I tell you that those 3 girls outside of my own daughter really helps build a foundation of Rad Arts Academy. They were critical of me. And it is the worst to have kids tell you about yourself, but it was true. And they really helped me make this a school that can be loved by so many. Start small with a committed group of families. Find a space. A lot of churches are more than willing to let you use your space. And don't forget the library. The library has meeting rooms that are free. You also have to find a rhythm that works for your life. You don't want a system that's going to burn you out. And, my biggest focus is on our community. It's not on perfection. And Rad Arts grew. I'm telling you, we started with 4, one of those being my own in August of last year. By January, we had 16, and now we were going in with 34. I've had to turn some people away because I didn't have enough space. We grew by word of mouth, by consistency. Local newspapers were like, hey, can I do a story on it? People have just, told others, and they didn't come because it was polished. They came because it was real. So if you're dreaming about starting a co-op, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to start.
Congratulations on all this growth. I am cheering and clapping and super excited for you and the families that I know are so grateful that you just started. Like you said, last piece of advice, you just have to start. And so who knew, you would
have that many families so quickly. Like, I'm sure you didn't think that would happen. And sometimes, you have one idea, and I don't even want to say bigger and better is always better, but like, more comes to you. And I'm so sure that the families and the kids that get to come 4 days a week, which is awesome, get to really thrive. So I was going to ask you about how did you grow that quickly, but word of mouth, newspaper articles, that's huge. So if you have any more insight into like, how did that word of mouth start? Did you like encourage people to share? Did people just kind of do it naturally? If, obviously word of mouth is pretty natural, but I'm just curious about that. And then I would love to know about the teachers. So you have part-time teachers, and like, how did you find them? Are they family? Are they parents? Like, how does that work? Because 4 days a week, granted, it's only, morning to afternoon. It's not a full kind of typical traditional school day. So it's less, but yeah, I'm just curious about that. So good. How do you stay organized? How do you balance, juggle all the things? What does that look like? Because I know you mentioned like you got to find something that works with you because you don't want to get burnt out. So like, how are you making sure that burnout doesn't happen? And I feel like I just asked you three big questions. So feel free to like take some time or, chunk your responses if that's helpful, or I can revisit some of those. But yeah, organization, juggling, balance, not burning out, all those things. I'm so excited to hear what that looks like for you.
So I will kind of work backwards with your questions. How do I balance so that I don't get burnout? I am really, or at least in the beginning, I was really strict on I will not have conversations with people about my co-op after hours. That was just a big thing to me because I needed to be able to breathe. Now, that has changed as we've grown, right now, because, there are people that can't reach out and ask questions until they get off work because some people aren't able to stay at home with their kids. And maybe a grandparent is the one who is bringing them to the co op or who is homeschooling for them. And so I try to work with those families, but I'm still, I try to make sure that I do business work, or at least the administrative side of it. I do that in the daytime, just like I would, a 9 to 5 or what have you. And I'm not working late hours. I have this like super strength that I am super organized. I don't know, like maybe it's the spectrum. I have no idea, but it's always been my superpower. And I love organization. I love spreadsheets and, you know, everything having its place. That's just something that I really thrive off of. I'm very routine oriented. And so that's the easy part for me. That's no issue. Now, teachers, we were able in the beginning when we just went to, I think from 3 to 16, of course, it was just me for the 3. And then when we, you know, increased almost over Christmas break, I had a friend who wanted her kids to come, and she decided to teach a class for free. Me and her we didn't make any money when we first started off. And she came in and taught science for me. And we only started with just 3 classes, and we broke the kids up in small groups. And the other lady who came, I met her over Facebook, and she had been coming to field trip. I did field trips for a while, Thursday trip and Thursdays, where I would invite homeschool families to come. And that's how I met her. And she decided to teach art for us for free, and her kids were benefiting. And so that's kind of how we started. And then I post a lot. And so I'm, posting pictures of kids and videos and, reels and, all the things to get the word of mouth out there. And I also know quite a few people. Just my dad's a pastor in the community. And so I, know a lot of people that way. And I was able to share information with them and get my dad to share information. And that truly helped us to get the word of mouth out. And it's definitely been a journey. And I'm telling you, like, it's God, like, seriously. Yes, I can put flyers out. And yes, I send text messages and tell people about it and reach out to all my friends in homeschool that I know. And I joined all the homeschool groups in Kentucky and my county. And every time I saw somebody post about they're looking for something, I would immediately respond with, hey, there's Rad Arts Academy if you'd like to join, and send messages to people and, all of the things. So just don't be shy. I also went to a community events. I try to go to any events in our community. I got t-shirts made and I wear my shirt and people ask me questions and I talk to community leaders and pastors of churches and I have relationships with them so that I'm able to, get to know them and let them know my heart for the community. I love my community and I want to reach out. There were many who maybe, couldn't even afford to come to our co-op, that we just gave scholarships to. And that meant me not getting paid for, 6 months. And that's okay because God still provided. Going forward, it looks a little bit different. The teachers that we have now, I had to, bring higher end teachers because of the population of students we have. And I didn't have to ask a lot. People found out about our organization, and I had teachers coming to me asking, hey, can I be a part of this? I believe in your mission. And, I just think being authentically you is what it really takes. And when people see your authenticity, they want to align with your values. If it's meant to happen, it will happen. And you just have to really weigh out, is this what I need to do? Is this what I align with and what I want? And you just go for it.
Yes, I so agree about the being authentic and just show up and be you, and what's meant to happen will happen. I like say those things all the time whenever I'm pursuing a goal or creating something. Whatever is meant to happen will happen. Whoever's meant to see it, to be a part of it, to help it grow, all of that will come. So just showing up, having fun, being you, just do that part, and what is meant to be will be. So love that so much. Thank you for going a little deeper into that around the teachers and the recruitment and all of that. Okay, I don't want to continue to ask the same question, but with the organization, because you're super organized, and this happens so much when we are just naturally really good at something or we really enjoy something, we don't realize the things that we do to be good at that, or it's hard for us to explain sometimes, right? So can you, because this podcast is called Voice Notes from the Organized Homeschool, so there are people who are maybe searching how to organize my homeschool, and this is coming up. So can you share what are some of your organizational, you can think of it like habits, tools, systems, resources? Can you take us behind the scenes if we were to just be a fly on the wall and watch you? What are the things that make you super organized? What are the things that you do because you love organization, do or think or believe? How do you operate? How do you, I'm sure because you love it and it's just natural to you, didn't really do anything to get there, but just what is it that you do to keep up your organization, to create organization in your life as a homeschooling mom who runs a co-op too? Because I know someone is going to be okay, she loves organization. What does she do? Because I want to love organization too. Or she's super organized. I want to step up my game with organization. So what does it look like for her? I am excited to hear too, because I also love organization, so I'm always thinking about it and always trying to, make my organization even better. So I can't wait to learn a little bit more from you on that front. Thanks.
Well, I guess I could say that I've learned that organization for me is less about being perfect and more about just creating rhythms that work for my family and for my co-op. I try to set aside time every single weekend to just map out the picture for the big week. And then every night I look over my checklist for the next day of what I need that to be. And that's a rhythm that really keeps me steady. But also I, of course, leave room for flexibility because I have 4 kids with special needs, so you can imagine what it's like for me, and things are constantly changing. As far as tools, I use a mix of digital and paper. I have a happy planner that I love to use, but I also have my Google Calendar that I color code everything from family, co-op, personal, so that, I can look at it as a glance and I know what's coming. And for my kids, they each have their own binders that have an attendance log that I keep in there. I keep their weekly assignment planner, and then I have I might add some progress notes in there. And then I also have my own, I love Google Drives because I have so many folders that are labeled, as far as whether it be events or each subject area. And I label them. And then, even for my co-op, I'm labeling so that my teachers and parents can easily access things. And then, for bigger projects, I like to plan ahead and to track tasks and deadlines. And once again, I like to write. And so I'm writing a lot of things down, with my Energel pens, Energel liquid pens in my, happy planner, but I make my own pages to go in the happy planner. And, I'm just jotting down notes here and they're all over the place. But then you know, I make calendars, and I make a lot of spreadsheets and things of that nature. I also sometimes like to group subjects into clusters to make it easy, like, for my kids, a STEM day or a creative arts day. And then for the co-op, I'll stagger the lunch group so that they don't overlap. And I like to have check-ins with the teachers to keep us aligned. So communication's huge. With the co-op, I have a weekly or monthly, newsletter that lets them know everything that's going on in each subject and what field trips we have coming up, and, reminders. And for my kids, I let them know weekly what's going on. And honestly, I guess the thing that has really helped me the most with organization is knowing what things need to be delegated. Of course, I'm going to hold on to what my vision is and designing my curriculum and communicating with parents, but I delegate, just teaching of certain classes and organizing snacks and handling the event logistics, that helps me prevent burnout. But as far as with my girls, the systems that I have with my co-op are the same that I have with my girls at home. And so I've put them into practice at home so that my kids know, we have calendars for different events, and we know whose color is whose on the calendar, and they know whose binder is whose. They pick them out themselves, and we have to go somewhere. They know to quickly pick up their binder and take it with them because we're going to do homeschool on the road. And it has, every subject in there with a different tab for that subject. And, it's labeled, and the assignments I only give them to them a week at a time. So that's not so overwhelming. And yeah, you just kind of have to do what works for your family. Like I said, it is so hard to explain my organization, but I hope I did a good job of explaining that.
No, this was really good. And I appreciate you just kind of going through, as much as you could share and think about in terms of your systems that you have. I think some really tactical things that someone could just use right away, like a binder for each child with a tab for each subject, is it seems probably to you very obvious and oh yeah, of course, this is how I do it. This is what I do. But I think for some of us, we don't have that set up right now. And hearing that it works for you is really helpful. So I think that makes sense. Having a balance of paper and digital, I think works really well in this world because so much is just sent to us digitally, right? So even for me, I've really did a lot paper-based last year and used my Google Calendar to keep track of co-op and different events, play dates and stuff like that. But I am going to also add in some digital organization this year. I think I'm going to play with Notion because things like our ELA curriculum has an online login, and I'm just sick of having to search for it every time, so I want to create this space where I can, just easily go and find that website and log in. So I think the mixture between paper and digital, unless you're going to go fully digital, makes sense. I don't think you can go fully paper in 2025. I just don't think you can. So I appreciate you sharing that, sharing some of how you work your co-op organization. So good. I think this was very helpful. And I'm curious to know, like, have you always been this organized? Did you have to go through, some challenges with organization or burnout or overwhelm? And if so, what did that look like? How did you get through that? Any advice you have for anyone who right now or at some point is, in a spot where they're like, this is a lot, I'm burning out, maybe I'm feeling anxious, whatever it is, any advice for that? Because it sounds like you're super organized now, and I'm just curious to know if you've always been this organized. And then the second question, especially if you're like, yep, I've pretty much been this organized, I haven't had to deal with any of those things, I would love to talk a little bit about the delegation piece, because that's hard to delegate and still like keep your vision but then bring people into the fold. So like, how do you do that? How do you keep certain things with you? How do you decide what's yours, what's to delegate, and then how do you be the visionary and create that vision but then delegate effectively so that you don't get burnt out?
These are excellent questions. With the organization piece, yeah, I have been organized like this my entire life. At 2 years old, I made my mom sad because she tried to put my clothes away in my drawers, and I told her that I had a certain way that I wanted things done. And so I've been like this my entire life. But one thing that I will say is I do have OCD and I do have anxiety. And although those things can be seen as negative, negative aspects of myself at times, I am so grateful for those. Because of my OCD and because of my anxiety, I am able to anticipate what things would look like if it weren't organized. I'm able to see how something could go awry if I don't have something else in place. It's kind of like my superpower. I know that sounds silly, but really it is. Like, you can see something as a curse or a blessing. And there are times that I do see it as a curse, but there are times that this is a blessing. Because of my anxiety, I constantly ruminate on thoughts and I think about the worst possible outcomes. And so, with me thinking about the worst possible outcomes, I put a plan into place to try to prevent those things from happening because I try to control everything. So that just goes into my organization is because I'm trying to control how things go. And so it can be good and bad. When it comes to delegating, I really have to tell myself it's okay because I want to be in charge. I want to make sure that things go according to plan. And it is so difficult for me at times to trust people, to trust that people can take my plan and see it out, or even to take my plan and tweak it. It's not completely easy for me. That is not my strength. And so I will say, in the past year, because I have delegated and said, you know what, I have a lot on my plate, I'm going to trust someone to handle math with my daughter because she needs help in areas that I cannot help her because I get easily frustrated. And so let me trust someone else to do the math portion. And delegating that responsibility wasn't easy at first, but I am very grateful that I did because it's one last thing that I have to do. Another delegation that I do, I'm busy with work, I'm busy with my kids, I'm busy with, planning and all the things. I delegate my laundry. My friend literally owns a laundromat. And once a month, I treat myself and my kids and I take all my laundry there and they wash, dry, fold it for me and even sort it at times. And so that's really helpful, and you just have to figure out what works best for you. But, you delegating for me is just the things, I make a list of all the things I need to do. The things that are usually the things I may not prefer doing or things that are lowest on my list, those are the things I delegate. And it's so nice to have those little things done for me so that I can focus on my favorite things to do. And it really works well. Another situation at my co op, we are participating with Operation Christmas Child. I actually love Operation Christmas Child. This is super fun for me. But one of my parents says, "Hey, I want to help in some way." And when those pamphlets got placed on my desk, I said, "You know what? This is something I can delegate. She can decide how this is going to get done, and she can rally up other parents to get donations in." Another parent asked if we can have a Thanksgiving. I was like, "You know what? Let's do it. She's going to get all the decorations together and I'm going to hire the caterer." So, those kind of things really help and it really works out. So, hopefully, I answered what you asked of me.
Yes, this was so good and super, super helpful. I am cracking up at 2-year-old Cassandra to her mom doing things her way and being super organized. And sometimes it is just, naturally who you are. So I appreciate that. And I love that, things that maybe could be seen as negative, you're like, nope, I'm going to make these my superpowers. I'm going to capitalize on the fact that this is how I am and use it to my advantage. And, sometimes that does require learning, like trusting people and delegating. And I get that too. I feel you on that. So totally understand that piece. So I'm very grateful for everything that you've shared so far. Would love to wrap things up with 2 final questions. One more direct and one open-ended. So one is, what advice would you give to folks who are wanting to do what you're doing? So you're starting your own co-op, homeschooling, doing all the things, staying organized. What would you say to them if they're wanting to be where you're at right now? What would your biggest piece of advice be? And then if there's anything else that we didn't get to touch on that you want to talk about, definitely let's chat about that now.
I've really enjoyed this. My biggest advice would be don't give up. You can dream and dream for all of your life. Dream up all of the things that you've always wanted to do. Dream up the things that you would do if you had all the money in the world. Don't limit your dreams to the means that you currently have, because you never know when things are going to align for you to be able to step into the dreams that you wrote down years and years ago. I am currently able to do so many things, not because I have the means, but because the village that I've been able and blessed to build has the means, and they are pouring into the dream that was placed in my heart years and years ago that I never gave up on. So those 2 pieces of advice, that's more than one, is to dream big. And the dream big and never give up on that dream. And the second is to invest in your village. Build up a village for yourself. It's very important. And I honestly do not have anything else to add. This has been so fun, and I am so grateful for the time that you gave me and the opportunity that you gave me to share just about my life.
Thank you so much. I am super grateful too. It has been really awesome learning from you, and all the gems you dropped. The last 2 pieces of advice were so on point, and I know someone needed to hear that, myself included. So thank you for that. Final thing. Where can people find you? Anything you have going on that you want them to be on the lookout for? If folks have questions, how could they reach out? We'll put any links in the show notes, but feel free to voice over that now before we officially wrap up.
They can find me on TikTok. I believe my name is Casondra Radford on everything. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the socials. I am just my name. And I also, for my co-op, it's Rad Arts with a Z, academy.com. So I look forward to anyone coming and reaching out for me. I will add you as a friend. I will follow you. I love to learn from others.
Awesome. Definitely go follow Cassandra. And thank you so much for everything that you've shared. I truly appreciate it. Excited to keep in touch and keep supporting each other throughout our homeschooling journey. So Thanks again. Talk to you soon. Bye.